Thank you. I'm Harvey Goldhersz. I'm the Chief Data Officer and the CEO over our analytics businesses within GroupM. And what I'm going to talk a little bit about just are things that I learned over the last 20 years leading digital agencies and media agencies and now data analytics, because talent in those areas has been, trying to keep up with the demand, which has been growing very quickly. And hopefully some of the things that I've learned through the School of Hard Knocks, you can take some of those tips and maybe learn a little more easily. I had a client ask me a few years ago, why would someone come and work for GroupM, especially if they are coming out of an MIT or an IIT and they have an engineering background or they have a data science or statistical background. They can go work for Facebook, they can go work for Google, they can go to all these other places. Why would they ever come to you? And I thought about that, and one of the things that we did realize is we probably have the best seat in the house in the entire ecosystem. Right? We get to work with just about every MarTech company out there. We work with Salesforce, Oracle. We get to build tech in-house as well. We get to work with just about every data company. We work closely with our partners at Kantar and Comscore, but we also work with Nielsen and everyone else. And so when we think about it, not to mention the publisher side, you get to actually see how the entire ecosystem comes together, and you get to work with all those great partners. And we found that was really compelling. We actually have a guy on my team. He actually had his PhD out of MIT. He had an offer letter sitting there from Google. And when we met up, that was the thing he found really interesting about coming to a place like GroupM, which is I get to work across the entire ecosystem, and I get to work with all these partners, and I get to understand at a high level how these pieces fit together and how the ecosystem is evolving. So as an agency group, we feel really fortunate that we can actually recruit and retain that talent at a high level. One of the other areas that increasingly, and we talked a little bit about artificial intelligence throughout the last couple of days, we have to think about what's the impact of artificial intelligence on our workforce, right? And you're going to find individual contributors who can sit and write code and publish it onto a system, and there's room for those people. But machines are increasingly going to do that work for us. So think about the staff, not just for what they can do today, but will they have the soft skills necessary, the ability to communicate effectively, the ability to find new territories, not just optimizing what's been done in the past, the ability to actually understand where are we going and carve out new territories and think creatively. So when we look at our data science practices and our engineering groups, we're looking not just for today, but we also want people increasingly who have the softer skills, those that will need to collaborate with those external partners and internal partners that we spoke about, those that can ideate outside the box a bit. So think about both hard and soft skills. I'm just going to jump ahead here in the interest of time. Now, one of the things that is important for us is to think about the calendar. When we hired in the typical Mad Men days, we had a big group of students who would graduate every spring, and they'd join our group, and that was fun. As we started to look for graduates coming out of Stanford and MIT and other schools with advanced degrees, we had to actually think about our recruitment calendar very differently. Now we're filling those chairs 8 to 9 months before they're actually arriving and walking through the door. Because if we don't, then someone else will make offers, and we are competing across a much wider range of businesses. So work with your HR teams to think about where do you recruit and also when do you recruit, because if you want to get the best talent, you have to make the offers early. We're also thinking about a career path. If you look at your exit interviews, and I'm guessing this would be true across certainly our agency partners, probably all of us, the people who are likely to leave are the ones who don't know where their career path is leading. So if you proactively work with your employees and understand where they want to be in 2 or 3 years, and you set milestones that are visible and attainable, whether they want to write code and be an engineer, or whether they want to be a business leader, or wherever they want to grow, work with them to align on that career path, because you'll find that the retention rates go up significantly when you're able to do that. A colleague of mine gave me a piece of advice several years ago, and it's one of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten, which is treat your young and inexperienced employees like they're old, and treat your old and experienced employees like they're young. And what he really meant by that when he gave me that advice is your older, more experienced employees actually understand the foundational stuff that is important, right? So they may not be as familiar with all the widgets and all the tech, but they can learn that. By the same token, if you look at some of the things that have been presented, they can tell good work versus bad work. They understand what good fusion looks like. They understand what good methodologies look like, and they can learn the tech. So keep training them. By the same token, your younger employees, they're unencumbered by what can't be done because they don't know. They haven't tried and failed. And oftentimes they will bring a very fresh perspective. So having management committees within your organizations that are empowered to actually make changes, not just lip service, but real substantive change, and listening to them, those types of things help not only to recruit and retain, but actually to get better work and better productivity out of your organizations. Think about your teams globally as a single team. If you work on a retail assignment and you have to have a Monday morning call with your client to talk about what happened, through Sunday evening, no one wants to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and do that work. You're not going to keep those teams happy and motivated for long. But the ability to actually work around the globe and to put the work within a proper workday for your employees by thinking about working with teams who are based in India or Asia or other parts of the world, and having that data ready so that the people who actually understand can interpret the data, can bring insights, and can talk about the tactical changes that need to be made on Monday morning. Having that type of fluidity across your global networks is a great way to not only build camaraderie, not just within your borders, but across the world, and also get better work and more productive work out of your employees. Then the last point is just collaborate, and think collaborating externally. There's a lot of government funding out there for people who want to do research and development, or for people who want to help those governments to show the power of their media infrastructures, their broadband and technology infrastructures as a productive place to do business. So we have some employees where we have governments paying 30 to 50% of their salaries, because we're taking PhDs and advanced analytics people out of university, we're training them up to do research and development work, and/or we're using the infrastructures of those governments as a way to showcase what's possible so that they can attract business into those communities. So one of the things that help us, because as we all know, the talent that we're talking about in data analytics is competitive and therefore it's expensive. Governments and other external partners can be a great source to help fund these things. So,
great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Harvey. We got time for probably 1.5 questions, or if you have something to add, if you don't have a question. I know there's been a lot of people, or there have been some no questions, so if you want to add something, raise your hand, please.
Great presentation, and I wholly agree. My question is, how biased is the academic, post-secondary academic institutions in treating critical thinking around digital if big private companies are funding that education on how to use their systems and tools? And how do we address that? Like Google universities and universities.
Can you just clarify what you mean by bias?
So like Google universities, I've literally walked into universities and seen the branding of how to use these systems as their academic training.
Yep. So I think it's the fact that these people are being exposed not just to Google, they're being exposed to Facebook, they're being exposed to Twitter, they're being exposed to Snap, not to mention some of the conventional media companies that are out there that they've grown up with. So they may have that bias, but at the end of the day, when you walk in and you give them the opportunity to actually see that these things don't work in isolation, and frankly, Google and Facebook are not going to have the same conversations with each other that they're going to have with us, openly and honestly, then the ability to actually sit with those partners to talk about joint development or to talk about how to solve problems for clients in a very open way, and to understand how to put those individual pieces together, they become much more, not everyone, it's not like we have 100% rate, and I don't want to overpromise, but we do see significant progress, and a lot of the people come in, especially at the beginning, they want that overview of the entire ecosystem. That's really motivating. Because they if you think about it, this is not an industry where, it's not like a doctor where you're going to go from being an older doctor to a younger doctor to an older doctor, and you sort of know what it looks like, and there are a few paths along the way. The way our industry changes, most people don't even know what's out there except for a few areas that they may have come across or learned in school. So having that broad view of the entire ecosystem is really motivating, despite whatever they may have seen in school.
And I would just add that, I mean, it sounds maybe a little evil, you know, that Google goes into a university, but most of their training materials are spot on and they're kept up to date. I even recommend to people that they should have their SEOs do the AdWords certification, right? And vice versa. There needs to be a better understanding, and I would highly recommend leveraging that AdWords certification. And even at the executive level, you can go do the easy one and get a better understanding of what goes on.
And those are great places to work, don't get me wrong. You know, there's something about being in a nice sunny place, riding around campus on your bicycle and getting all this great food all day. I mean, it's not to say that that's not a great place to work. Plus, they've got brilliant people running the company. So it's just that we can also find things that are attractive to similar sorts of people.
All right, please join me in thanking myself and Harvey.
Thank you.